Hey guys, welcome to today's video where we'll be continuing our chapter 1 concepts of biology. Last time we left off at the diversity of life, and just to quickly recap, we spoke about what exactly is life. This is an important concept in biology because it's the study of life. So how are we able to study life if we don't know what constitutes something as life? So we spoke about the different factors that considered something to be living or life. We talked about homeostasis. We said that living things are complex and made up of many cells. Their response to stimuli, energy processing, and then of course, reproduction. So what else do we know about these living organisms? Well, not only do they have these main characteristics, but if we go back, they are very highly organized, and we have a organization in biology from the atom, molecule, macromolecule, cell to tissue, organ to organ system, and then eventually the organism. And then after you have all these organisms, you can create a population. And then you have a community, which are several populations of different animals and species. You have ecosystem and then the biosphere, which is life on Earth. So if we now continue to our slide that we left out on the diversity of life, we're now going into evolution and its process and how this is the process of gradual change during which new species arrive from older species. Evolution has led to great diversity of life on Earth. And what we have as an example is the Cambrian explosion. So if we look over to our right, we can see some very cool images of some scary looking species, these organisms. And I use the Cambrian explosion as the example because it is the most prominent event in that occurred 500 million years ago. Now, this isn't when life first showed up. Of course, life showed up way before this, but this is just that this is the most important event where there was a burst of complex animals, especially those found in the sea. So if we go over to our next slide, we have them named out and their pictures should pop up. First, we have Wiwaxia, Hallucigenia, and what do you guys see here? These guys look like they're straight out of an alien movie. They look so scary. This is the first we saw very complex organisms. You know, before the Cambrian explosion, we had single-celled organisms and very boring microorganisms. This is the first time where we're getting the complex stuff, the weird-looking stuff. Like, look at this thing, Anomalocaris, Morella. So Wiwaxia, starting with this one, this was a small, soft-bodied marine creature from the Cambrian period, some 508 million years ago. And it has this oval-shaped body, and it's covered with these protective scales and very long spikes. It most likely grazed the ocean floor or sea floor, and it used its mouth to feed on organic matter. Next, we have Hallucigenia, a very bizarre, spiny creature, and you guys can see this with the Cambrian. And if you guys have time, make sure you guys look at some of the other organisms that were here during the Cambrian period. You guys will see just how bizarre and weird they are. It looks like this long worm with spines on its back, and then it has like some appendages underneath, if you guys can see there. And it's mostly known for its appearance, which really confused scientists. This too fed on small organisms on the sea floor. And really, again, just something that just looks straight out of an alien movie. Then we have Anomalocaris, probably the most, I wouldn't want to say important, but anytime you look up the Cambrian period, this is the top guy that you will always see because it was a large predator for marine life. So it had this like segmented body, these large eyes, and these two spiked appendages that you guys can see here. It was one of the top predators at the time, and it fed on trilobites and other marine animals. Lastly, we look at Morella, and I'm just kind of going through these guys. I suggest you guys look at my other video, which I'll link somewhere here, where I talk about the Cambrian explosion. And you guys can get more of an idea of some of these weird creatures. But next we have Morella, and this was a small shrimp-like arthropod. And it had a unique body with spiny fan-shaped appendages, and it was likely a bottom dweller as well. It fed on a lot of filtering, particles in the water, and it's one of the most abundant and iconic creatures from the Cambrian explosion. So why do I show you guys these weird things? Professor, what's up? Why am I showing you guys these weird things? Well, the reason I'm doing this is because I want to show you guys the complexity of life and diversity of life. And this is what biology is all about, just how diverse and complex these different species are. And we can see that starting with the Cambrian explosion. Again, before this, very simple organisms, microorganisms, and now we can see some variation here. And that's what evolution is all about. All these species look different, function differently. Some are predators, some are prey, all through evolution. They adapted to their environment. They evolved over time due to, some type of pressures in their environment. Some grew these spiky, appendages to protect themselves from predators. Some grew larger to be the predator. Some swam faster, so on and so forth. And biology, I'm sorry, not biology, evolution is a key theme in biology. So I want you guys to keep that in your back pocket as we go through this entire course. So, okay, Professor, we have all of these different species. It must be out the wazoo. It must be crazy keeping up with all these things. Well, I have good news for you. We have a taxonomy. We have a hierarchy where we're able to kind of organize all of these different species. Well, hell, there's 8.7 million living things that have been studied on Earth. 8.7 million. So this is a large number of living organisms. And so what we do is we organize them by groups, by their similarities. I went ahead a bit, sorry. Each group gets broken down into smaller groups and then even smaller. So this organizational system that we have, and this was proposed by a scientist named Carl Linnaeus in the 18th century. So here's an example here. We have a fox. So we have a diagram here and it kind of breaks down its organization. So first we have domain, eukarya, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, right? And each of these are ways that we organize an organism, right? And in the next slide, you guys will see some of the other domains and how we continue to break down. So if we look, we have a fox and it's called Vulpes vulpes, kind of like Vulpix in Pokemon. But Vulpes vulpes, where you have the genus and species, and you guys will see that a lot. And I'm jumping ahead because I'm so excited, but this is a binomial nomenclature and we'll get there, where a lot of the times you guys will hear scientists say these two names, and that's usually the genus, well, not usually, it is the genus and then the species. So in this case, we have the red fox, Vulpes vulpes, right? We don't say the whole name from the domain, kingdom, phylum, class, and we can organize it that way. But at the end, it gets broken down into these final two categories. So what are the different domains that we have? There's three main ones that you would want to know, like you memorize that favorite song of yours. Domain bacteria, domain archaea, domain eukarya. That is it. So these images represent different domains. So you have a scanning electron micrograph that shows some bacterial cells that are to domain bacteria, and then extremophiles in domain archaea, and then you have the sunflower and this lion, which are eukarya. What do you notice here? Eukaryotes, right? Eukaryotes, true nucleus. We are plants, animals are all under domain eukarya. So what better way than to take the human as an example? And we have a human here, right? This is me, this is you. I hope you're a human watching. Taxonomy of living things, and of course humans. We are in domain eukarya. kingdom Animalia, phylum Chordata, Mammalia, primates, and then I want to skip down to the bottom. What did I say? That binomial nomenclature. We are Homo sapiens. So the first where it says Homo is the genus, and then the species is sapien. So when you put that together, we are Homo sapiens, right? If I could get this slide together, I can go to the next one. Thank you. Binomial naming system. So this is something that I had mentioned before, where we have this dual naming system. We use two unique names. And of course, this is by our guy Linnaeus again. So clap your hands for him, where it consists of the genus name. Like I said, Homo, right? For us, it's always capitalized. Always, always, always capitalized. Then the species name. So that's the second part of the name. Sapien, right? We say Homo sapien. Homo sapien. Homo, the H is capitalized, and then the next part, which is sapien, is lowercase. In print, the genus and species are set in italics. Here's an example. The North American blue jay. I'm not going to pronounce his name, but you guys can see here. What I can pronounce is Homo sapien for you guys, where you can see, again, the H is capitalized, the S in sapiens is not, and then it's in italics as well for both of these, for both of these, right? The blue jay and the human. So next, we have a phylogenetic tree, and we have down packed the double naming system. We have all these billions of species. Now, how do we figure out the relationship between all of them? Well, we have a phylogenetic tree, and this is just a diagram showing the evolutionary relationship along biological species based on similarities and differences in genetic or physical traits, or even both. So not only do we categorize these guys by domain, phylum, kingdom, species, genus, and all these things, we also have a phylogenetic tree where we can kind of visualize their relationship based on genetics or physical traits. So let's look at an example here. So this is a phylogenetic tree that was constructed by Carl Woese using genetic relationships. So this tree shows the separation of like these living organisms into the three domains that we've talked about: bacteria, archaea, and eukaryotes, right? So we have it separated. Let's see. Bacteria and archaea are organisms without a nucleus or organelle surrounded by a membrane, and therefore are prokaryotes. And then to your right, you have eukaryotes, and you can kind of see the separation there, right? To the left, we have the bacteria with the red linings, and then in the middle, the orange linings, archaea, and then to the right, eukaryotes in the, that's like a, not a yellow, but like a gold, right? So we can see bacteria are completely different from eukaryotes, and archaea is different from eukaryotes, but at some point, they all have a similar node at the bottom, but for the most part they branch out. And you can see where we have animals, fungi, plants, we all share this one node right there. But at the end of the day, we are all different genetically, but let's take this as an example. If we look at animals and fungi, with us being so close together, let's look at that relationship. We may not look the same, phenotypically, right? Phenotypically or look alike. But genetically, we are more alike to the fungi than we are to the slime mold. So you guys can kind of see that there. Or if we compare the fungi, which is the fungi closer related to animals and plants, or to gram-positive bacteria? The fungi is far, far away from the gram-positives, so clearly it's more related to the animals and plants than the gram-positives. So again, this kind of gives us a visualization of living organisms, and being able to compare them and see who they're closely related to, phenotypically and then genetically, right? So if we go to our next slide, we want to go into DNA analysis. And again, I talk about phenotype, which is just a fancy way of saying the look, right? But if we go into more of the genetics, DNA tells us a lot. DNA is a molecule, a very large molecule that is composed of atoms. And not only do we have DNA, but we also have fossil records. What do fossil records tell us? It gives us a look into the past. So how are we able to know the relationship between certain species? It's through the DNA genetically. Also, we have fossil records where we are able to date these fossils and kind of get an idea of what that organism may have looked like, and what they're more closely related to. So this jumps into the process of science. So we have the core concepts down of biology, but now we're going to the process of science. How do we get this going? How do we start research? How do we ask questions and test them? How do we know anything is really what it is? So we have a process. So discoveries of biology are made by a community of researchers who work individually and together using agreed on methods. So there's different branches of biology, and I'll kind of quickly go over this, and that's molecular biology. And that's just studying biological processes. So we've already defined biology, the study of life, and the properties related to, or at least the properties that make something living. Now we're studying those biological processes at the molecular level, right? Microbiology, this is studying the function of and structure of microorganisms. This is widely used by ecologists, geneticists, and many other scientists. Neurobiology, this is the study of the nervous system, including cellular development, medical, and even goes into computational biology. Paleontology, study of life's history. Zoology, study of animals and plants. And then biologists, biologist is just someone that specializes as a biotechnologist, ecologist. So, you can be a biologist and you study molecular biology, theoretical biology. You're a biologist, just a very broad term for all of these different branches. And the scope of biology is so large. So when a lot of students ask me, what can you do with biology? Well, there's a lot that you can do with it after you specialize. There's so many. Even in my master's program, I took it's like a computational biology. We're studying the human placenta and creating a database. And I even learned some coding. So a little computer science there. So biology is pretty broad, and there's so many avenues that you guys can take with it once you guys specialize. So what is science, right? Now we're kind of going into a more broader term, right? Because biology is the study of life. It is a science. So now, what is science in its nature? Well, it can be defined as knowledge about the natural world. Science cannot answer purely moral questions, aesthetic questions, or spiritual questions. And this is where I want to really make sure I make this point to you guys. I have a book out called Paradoxical Life, Where Do We Come From? It's, would say, a very controversial book. We can't tell where we came from. Again, that book that I wrote is very philosophical, and it's important to note that science cannot answer any spiritual, moral questions or things like that. Science is based on fact, what we can prove, what we can prove mathematically or straight with facts. So if you're looking for answers to something that may not be completely feasible, then biology is not going to do it for you, or science, not at all. We work on fact, numbers, statistics, and things that actually show that this is proven. So what we do is we have the scientific method, and this is kind of a process used to answer these important questions that we have, right? So it's a method of research with defined steps that includes experiments and careful observation. It is a guideline and can be altered to fit many different research projects. So again, this is kind of a universal method that we use in all types of sciences, from biology to physics, theoretical physics, whatever the case may be. And to start off, what do? We make a hypothesis. So this is just a suggested explanation for an event which can be tested. So hear that correctly, that can be tested. We make a lot of guesses or very strong, I wouldn't even say opinions, not opinions, very strong guesses about something that we cannot test. And if we can't test it, we can't answer that question. It has to be tested. So scientific theory. This is a generally accepted, thoroughly tested, and confirmed explanation for a set of observation or phenomenon. As I had said before, we have to be able to thoroughly test something and confirm explanation on that observation or whatever we are studying. A scientific law, this describes how elements of nature will behave under certain specific conditions, often expressed in mathematical formula. Again, I go back to we work on fact and we work on mathematics. Math is really a great tool for how everything works on this earth, this planet, this universe. And without these mathematical formulas, I don't think we'd be able to figure out a lot of things. And these are important because it lets us know how nature will behave. That's why we have different variables. We have Charles's law, Boyle's law. There's so many different equations that I could throw out there, or mathematical formulas. But this is a very important part of all of science, and you'll see it a lot in biology when you guys get into like statistical analysis and things like that. But again, it is a very important part of the scientific method and science as a whole. So what is natural sciences? Well, natural sciences are fields of science related to the physical world and its phenomenon and processes. So this is biology, astronomy, geology, physics, chemistry. And, there's actually some scholars that choose to divide sciences into life sciences. The study of living things like biology, and then physical sciences, studying of non-living matter, including astronomy, physics, and chemistry. So you can say natural sciences is, everything nature related, biology, astronomy, geology, physics. And then you separate life sciences, which will mainly be biology, and then the physical sciences, that are the non-living stuff, right? Like physics, chemistry. And then some disciplines like biophysics and biochemistry build on both sciences. So you kind of see what I'm getting at here. You have the, nature, natural sciences, we have the whole list. Then we can separate it from the non-living and then the living. So one is life sciences, one is physical sciences. And sometimes these subjects can merge into one. There's so many. You have astrobiology. You have computational biology. What you'll see is a lot of these subjects get merged, and many tools are used, and a lot of knowledge and skills are used to get to that common question that we have in that certain subject, right? And I like to use astrobiology as a perfect one. Astronomy and biology. You're taking a life science, biology, and then you're taking a physical science, astronomy, and you marry them and you have astrobiology, which just really is studying more of the origin of life outside of our solar system, or even outside of our planet. So a lot of astrobiologists have a very strong background in biology and also astronomy, because they even study rocks that are on these different planets and looking for biosignatures and trace elements and things of that nature, proteins, amino acids that may be stuck in this rock, and kind of give us a hint at where we may have come from, or if we may have evolved from microorganisms that have been on asteroids, comets, and meteorites. So this is just marrying different subjects. So you guys can see here the the web that we have here of some of the fields and sciences, right? Biology, geochemistry, chemistry, geology, astronomy, physics, and it's all connected in some way. Then we have scientific inquiry. Both types of logical thinking are related to two main paths of scientific study. There's descriptive science and hypothesis-based science. So the descriptive science, it's for observation, to explore and discover. Then hypothesis-based, it aims to test a potential answer to a specific problem. So most scientific endeavors combine both, and you guys will see that a lot. But for the most part, a lot of the times you hear about hypothesis-based science. You have some sort of guess, make an observation, make a guess, and then you actually test it to see if your hypothesis was true or not. So what is this whole scientific method thing? Who found who found this thing? Well, it was Sir Francis Bacon, and he's credited for being the first to document his scientific method. And it's important to note, though this is a biology course, it's not exclusively used by biologists. It's actually used by everyone, even us. Even if you're not a biologist, you've probably used it before. It could be used for anything, and so like a logical problem solving method. So how does it work? It starts off with an observation. You observe something, you see something, then you say, you question something that you observe. You see something, you say, how did that happen? Then you formulate a hypothesis, a guess. Well, I think it happened because of this. Then you test it, but that hypothesis must be testable. It should also be falsifiable, meaning that it cannot be disproven by experimental results. So hypothesis can be disproven or eliminated, but it can never be proven. So then you make a prediction based on your hypothesis. It actually has this format if then. So if all apples that are green cause a disease, then these apples over here that are green as well should cause a disease. So what do? You take those apples on that other tree and see if it's true. You create an experiment to test your hypothesis. So an experiment has variables. This is the part of the experiment that varies or changes. And then controls, this is the part of the experiment that does not change. Then you collect data results from your experiment, and then you form a conclusion after analyzing the results. So the scientific method is a series of defined steps that include experiments and careful observation. And you guys can see to the left, we have a chart making the observation, asking a question, forming a hypothesis. And if we go all the way down, you see if the hypothesis is supported or not supported. And if not, well, you have to form another hypothesis and try again, because that first one that you had was not supported. It was disproved. So now you have to go back and think of another hypothesis for why this occurred. So basic and applied sciences, basic or pure sciences, seeks to expand knowledge regardless of short-term application. So it doesn't really focus on like developing a product or any type of commercial value. This is very basic, pure science. They have applied science that tries to solve real-world problems. So these are a lot of the ones that are most popular. Applied sciences, pharmaceutical, making that drug that cures this disease, cures cancer. And in the example here, focus on things such as improving farm or curing diseases. So these are applied scientists. Probably the most popular type of science, of course, because of the money involved, versus basic science, which again, it doesn't focus on developing a product or anything. It's more, short term application for knowledge. But you have to realize that a lot of the applied science wouldn't be possible without the basic science. So basic science does a lot of the grunt work, and I think is one of the most important parts of science that a lot of people don't talk about, because everyone wants to jump to applied science that solves the real world problems. These are the big stuff. This is what we need. But you have to build up that basic or pure science to be able to do the complex science that allows you to get to that applied science and technology type of thing. And that is the end of it, guys. This was chapter 1, part 2. We will be working on chapter 2 coming up, which will be more about the chemistry of life. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. And if you guys haven't already, just leave a like, comment, subscribe. I'll be continuing this series, posting other videos as I usually do. And I'll see you guys in the next one.